the seemingly innocent and rapid dissemination of the depictions of drag in social media platforms such as Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook give the social media user the impression of an integrated and normalized culture that lives harmoniously with a still dominating heteronormative ideology. While TV shows like RuPaul's Drag Race professes to be an agent of change, it simultaneously reinforces heteronormative models. This presentation explores how such complex and holistic representations of drag render the body into a costume that becomes agentic when becoming a theatrical representation of idealistic depictions of gender. This agency is not generated through the representation of gender that garments traditionally provide, but through manipulations of the body such as suppression or hyperbolic amplification. The observer activates the agency of such bodies through what Peter Bonish calls interactive spectating. Using RuPaul's Drag Race 7-season winner Violet Chachki's online presence in social media as a case study, I am exploring the body and dress of traditional theatrical spaces through the lens of costume. Drawing from Kerry Nolan's work that examines human agency, I explore agency through the analysis of the body as an immaterial entity that is considered here as a theatrical conceit. This exploration examines the concept of agency against two theoretical considerations, embodiment and theatricality. Kerry Nolan, in her book Agency and Embodiment, analyzes the ways in which culture is both embodied and challenged through the corporeal performance of gestures. Nolan states that kinesthetic experience produced by acts of embodied gesturing places pressure on the conditioning a body perceives, encouraging variations in cultural practice. Nolan argues that kinesthesia, or feeling the body move, encourages experimentation, modification, and at times rejection of the routine. She observes that despite the impact of social conditioning, human beings continue to invent surprising new ways of altering the inscribed behaviors they are called on to perform. Therefore, corporeal performance can produce effective accounts of agency. The act of performing the body in cyberspace has become both a popular event in everyday life and simultaneously a performative act. We watch reality TV and participate in highly charged voyeuristic activities such as posting and sharing photos, videos, messages, or comments in spaces like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, among others. Our society has become a consumer of voyeuristic instances where we perform and participate on a global stage. The idea of performing gender through imagery created for a virtual space establishes new paradigms for theatricality. When the concept of gender is narrowed to a binary scheme and trivialized, as in the case of the contestant's body of the reality show RuPaul's Drag Race, the inherent theatricality of the representational body posted in social media activates the agency of this costumed body and communicates a sense of perpetuation rather than dissidence. From this perspective, Chachki's costume body in social media acquires a special kind of agency, one that no longer holds the power to create a narrative of dissent and control, but an agency that moves towards the idea of performing binary gender and normative dress. Violet Chachki's extreme waist suppression and overly slim silhouette created with corsets and burlesque-like elements such as high heels, wigs and makeup, promote unrealistic body proportions that blurs views on gender. This perspective only allows us to see such depiction from the lens of what masculine and feminine is. Therefore, such representation promotes and perpetuates the same values drag traditionally fights against. To put Chachki's online presence in context, it is important to mention some facts. According to social media platform, Chachki's presence on Instagram draws 1.8 million followers, 189,000 followers on Facebook, and 269,000 followers on Twitter. She also has a following of 422,000 on YouTube and has become an iconic figure in pop culture. These figures show the kind of following she has and Chachki's potential influence on culture and societal ideologies. Chachki's act of othering through cultural manifestations of gender creates gestural actions that imply the use of the body as agentic. The metaphorical act of othering brings costume to the front and center of the performance. Chachki's presence in social media also brings the notion of the theatrical through a process of what scholar Peter Bunish calls relational dramaturgy, a process where the act of active spectating places the audience in a dynamic and interactive position. The act of altering the performance through active spectating places agency on a traditionally perceived passive audience. Through this process, performers and spectators create a democratic process of dramaturgical affect through embodiment. This performance, following Kerry Nolan's idea of agency and embodiment, establishes the body as creator of a kinesthetic experience that can resist or challenge the very cultural notions that impose order and meaning onto the body. She writes, "The lived experience of performing a gesture can threaten to produce a kinesthetic excess with respect to the predetermined social meaning it is intended to bear." End of quote. Chachki's reinforcement of normative ideologies of oppression and commodification is a clear example of how the body alters meaning through gestural performance. Such performance affects the performer and the spectator simultaneously by both creating meaning through perceptual channels. Unfortunately, Violet Chachki's agency is directed towards the perpetuation of traditional representations of gender rather than using the body's gestural potential for this end. Chachki's representation of the commodified, burlesque-like feminine body remains a theatrical image, a cardboard-like banner that reiterates an old message.